What's funny was I was living two lies that I see people live. First one is this. First one is, if I just make more money, it will change everything. That's a total lie. And we tell ourselves that all the time. If I just get the next raise, these demons, the way I manage my money, will all of a sudden become better. If you can't handle $20,000, I'll tell you what, it just gets worse when you get 50. It gets worse when you get 70, it gets worse when you get 100. The money thing is that we're all so afraid we're going to make a mistake, right? When I first teach people board games, they've never played them. They're all afraid they're going to make a mistake. They're all afraid. And then I go, no, don't worry about it. If you don't understand it, it's fine. You're going to, by turn 3, you're going to get all of it. Who cares? It doesn't matter. Again, it's not the Olympics. And when they relax and they let themselves learn, we're all smart enough to understand a board game and how it plays. We're all smart enough to understand what it means to create a financial plan. This is not outside our realm of possibility. I always kind of get frustrated when I see somebody ask a group of strangers a question and then the stranger answers. The stranger doesn't know you. You don't know the stranger. Earl in Peoria can't zip up his pants. He spends all day on Facebook and you're asking him what to do with your 401k. Are you crazy? Like, surround yourself with people who know you, that you know have your back. And for me, people that will argue with me. I love people that will argue with me and go, Joe, you know what? You're full of it. You can do better.
Welcome to Catching Up to FI, a podcast on mindset, money, and life for late starters of any age on their journey to financial independence. I'm Bill, and I'm a late starter.
I'm Jackie, and I'm also a late starter, and we're your host. We're here to help you on your journey to financial independence, no matter where you're starting.
We're going to talk to experts, other late starters, and explore topics related to our mission.
Join us as we catch up to FI together.
Hello, and welcome back to Catching Up to FI. I'm Bill Yount, and we're going to laugh a ton today. We have a really special guest on. You know him, you love him. It's Joe Saul-Sehy of Stacking Benjamins. We're very fortunate that he chose to join us, and he has a $100 bill behind him. We're not giving that away, but we're going to give away humor, and we're going to do a little trivia today. We've not done trivia on the show, and we're going to ask Joe about his Ohio and Tennessee knowledge base. Right, Joe?
I went to Michigan State, so I can't know anything about Ohio and that disgusting Ohio State University. I'm here because you're sending me $2.
And I'm the Ohio girl, but at least we can say we're border states, but I know we are rivals. Every now and then I'll run into somebody wearing blue and yellow, and typically they get looked at really strange.
We can agree on that, Jackie.
Yeah.
We can agree. We don't go there. Yeah. No, not at all. And what's sad is that my sister went to Ohio State. My lovely co-host on our real estate podcast, Crystal Hammond, the amazing Crystal Hammond, went to Ohio State.
Yeah.
So
okay, awesome.
Sadly, there's some pretty awesome people in my life who went to Ohio State.
There's an Ohio State. I got a $2 bill with Ohio State on there. I give those away every day. And I had Michigan, but nobody seems to want the Michigan one. So
yeah, no, you got to go Michigan State because they're way cooler.
Yeah.
All of our guests get a handwritten note of thank you and Jackie's $2 bills. It's really easy for me to spend her money.
Yeah, he loves to do that, doesn't
he? Funny how that works, Jackie. That's really
I know. How does that work? That's so easy.
Well, Joe needs really no introduction, but we're going to do a little one anyway. He's the podcaster that we know that records his show from his mom's unfinished basement, or at least that's where it started. Joe Saul-Sehy learned from failure, just like us late starters. Destroying his credit immediately after leaving home, he had to learn about money the hard way. And he's a late starter, guys, and we're going to hear that story. As much of it as he is telling other people how to manage their money as a financial advisor. After 16 years in the industry, Joe moved to financial media and created Stacking Benjamins, the greatest money show on earth. He is the ringmaster of a ragtag bunch of characters. It is one of the most listened to podcasts in the personal finance space. Clippinger has called the show the best personal finance podcast, and Fast Company has described it as a striking balance between fun and functional. Joe lives in Texarkana with his spouse. He's the only one I know in Texarkana. His spouse is Cheryl, and he has a cat named Cooper.
Who's laying, by the way, for people on video, right? There's Cooper.
All right. Well, part of the Stacking Benjamins mascot, I guess.
Yes. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah. Well, welcome to Catching Up to FI. Thank you for joining us. And your first trivia question, to get things rolling, is Ohio is known as the Buckeye State. Now, do you know what a Buckeye is and why it's called the Buckeye State?
I think it's a nut. And I also think that if you eat it, it's poisonous. I think it'll kill you. Those are the two things I think I know. But no, besides that, I don't.
Okay, well, it's a tree in the Ohio River Valley. And
Swing and a
why
miss.
it's called a buckeye is because this nut-like seed, when it's dried, appears like a rich dark brown color with a single lighter brown spot that resembles the eye of a deer, hence the Buckeye State. And Jackie, who's from Ohio, didn't even know this either.
I
So
did
don't feel bad.
But is it poisonous? Is it poisonous?
Don't know. That wasn't in my research. We'll have to look it up.
I bet it is, but here's another thing about the Ohio Buckeye is that now the little candies that you make, the little chocolates. So when someone says you want a Buckeye,
yes,
I'm like, sure, I want to bite into it, and it's chocolate and maybe some kind of peanut butter or whatever. But Buckeyes, baking Buckeyes are like a big thing here, and you eat them. Now, those are fine. Now, the real ones, they probably are poisonous, to be honest.
Well, we have to do a little Tennessee trivia because I am from Tennessee, where Jackie's from Ohio. And we'll start with the volunteer state. When did Tennessee become known as the volunteer state?
The year it volunteered to enter the Union. Like it decided that it would go ahead and just volunteer before it got conscripted into the Union. I don't know.
That's cheating.
No,
We need a number, right?
Well, it has
A year.
to do with,
It's got to be a year.
it has to do with soldiers and volunteering soldiers into the War of 1812. So it was 1812 that it became known as the volunteer state. You're
Ding,
0
ding,
for 2,
ding.
Joe. You're going to get a few more chances, and you have a running total of the trivia on your show, and I think OG is winning, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, this is the reason why I ask the trivia and I don't answer the trivia, because there you got it. I had to make up an answer, and it wasn't sufficient.
Well, we turned the tables on you, as we should, okay? It's our goal today to embarrass you with the fact that you don't know the answers to questions, because most of the time you seem to, right, Jackie?
Yes, yes. Well, and Joe, if you come up with any good trivia for Bill and I during the show, throw it our way and we'll see if we can answer it. Bill's a pretty smart guy. I like to think I'm a pretty smart girl, so we'll see.
Well, what you don't know about Joe is he loves board games, or maybe you do if you listen to his show. You go to a conference with Joe, he's laying out after the conference is over, he's down there with 20, 30 people playing some board game. I've done one of these. He is a great board game master. So I hope you get a chance to play a game with Joe, just like we're doing today.
You know who likes board games? Brad Barrett from CUtFI.
Yeah, he does. I always see him. I see that group. I remember whatever the hotel is near Economy. I definitely saw Joe and I saw Brad and a bunch of other guys and girls that just love board games. And I'm like, you know what? I need to do that.
What's your board game of the week, Joe?
I don't know. I just got a new one today called Pompero, and I've never played it, but it looks really cool. It's about you're creating a company that does wind energy. So you're trying to be the best entrepreneur creating wind power for communities. So
Wow, that's a niche game.
How many board games do you think you own?
probably this is my vice. I don't collect stuff except board games. So just so people know before you hear this number, I would say over 200. Yeah.
Oh my God. You could start a store. You
Yeah.
got a store right there.
Yeah, I have a problem.
I do have to give Joe credit. Our backstage Diana, our awesome graphics person, she did send me about the Buckeye. And it says, removing the shell and roasting the nut neutralizes its harmful tannic acid content and makes for a protein-packed snack. That's great. But if not prepared properly, Buckeye nuts are toxic to humans,
There we go.
causing symptoms including weakness, diarrhea, vomiting, paralysis, and death. Look at Joe.
Maybe I get half a point. Maybe I get half a
All
point.
right. Yeah.
Yes.
He gets definitely half a point. Thanks, Diana, for being in the background and making us look bad.
Joe
We
was
love it.
right.
All right.
Can I tell you guys a story about the board games, though? Because I think that this is a good story that I don't often get to tell, which is that I was in 8th grade. My grades were okay, but not wonderful. I was maybe a B minus, C plus kind of student. And our TV died. And so back then we didn't have a ton of money. We had one TV. A lot of houses back then. I'm 56 years old, only had one TV. So we went to the Curtis Mathis dealership, there was a TV dealership. There was no Best Buy. And they drove my little brother, my little sister, and I in the station wagon. They rolled the windows down part way so we would breathe back in the day when you could leave your kids in the back seat. And they walked in to buy a TV. And they came out and made the most horrifying decision to an 8th grader ever. They said, you know what? We just looked at the price of the TVs and we thought about whether we wanted or needed a TV. And we decided to see how long we could go without one. The very next year, my grades went from B minus C plus to all A's. I had all A's. Number 2 was I wrote a book in 8th grade. It was a horrible book, but it was this fantasy thing, but it was 120 pages. I did it in my free time because I had tons of free time. And then the third thing was our family talked more and got really close through board games, card games, because instead of all of us facing in one direction, watching this box, we were watching each other. And so the reason I like board games has nothing to do with wind energy or whatever the game of the day is. It's the fact that we can have this fun sit around laughing about a constructed situation, whatever the game is, and we're enjoying each other. I don't play games for the game. I play it to enjoy the people that I'm around. In fact, tonight, the night we're recording this, we have friends that are coming over. All of my friends, most of them had never played games before they met me. And if they did, they were hyper competitive. And all of them have said the thing they love about playing games is, I don't really care if I win. I don't really care who wins. I'm not going to flip it doesn't matter. We're going to remember whenever anybody gets really upset about a board game, I always go, really, this isn't the Olympics. Who cares? Nobody cares. Big deal. So you lost the game or you didn't understand the rule. It's not a big deal. And I think this has a lot of analogy, not just to life and about enjoying where you are and enjoying people, and also fencing off your time. I think there's some things there because how much of our time gets consumed by social media, Netflix, all this other programming. I mean, if you aren't careful, these companies will fill your day with stuff that helps them, but really goes against all the things that bring us joy. But I think this also has a lot to do with money. And the money thing is that we're all so afraid we're going to make a mistake, right? When I first teach people board games, they've never played them. They're all afraid they're going to make a mistake. They're all afraid. And then I go, no, don't worry about it. If you don't understand it, it's fine. You're going to, by turn 3, you're going to get all of it. Who cares? It doesn't matter. Again, it's not the Olympics. And when they relax and they let themselves learn, we're all smart enough to understand a board game and how it plays. We're all smart enough to understand what it means to create a financial plan. This is not outside our realm of possibility. I think we have to give ourselves a little more grace. We have to relax a little. If we relax and we're okay if we screw it up a couple times, we're going to do way better than what we usually do, which is nothing.
I love that, Joe.
No, I completely agree. I mean, the aspect of community is one of the strongest aspects of the FI community. Everybody should join because getting to events, meeting other people, this has, as I've mentioned before, totally changed and broadened my life. My life is so much bigger than it ever was before.
Specifically, when you met me at Economy, you're talking about.
Well, we were having beers. I'll say anything. And I think you bought me a couple of beers. So you were a friend immediately.
Oh, gee, I missed out on the free beers.
I know, Jackie.
I'll see you next year, Joe, for
you,
sure.
You, me, Economy. Yes.
Yes.
All right. Well, we mentioned in the intro, and we'll shift a little bit to financial topics. You're a late starter, much like our audience. And maybe this is a story you haven't told very often. We want to hear your late starter story.
Yeah, the first half of the story, I'll kind of gloss over because I have told that a lot, which is how I messed up my money like most people do early on. I got myself into credit card debt. The bad news is at the time that all of this happened, where I had tons of debt, I was also a financial planner. That was a very good one, but I didn't think any of that advice applied to me. Are you kidding me? I was going to give other people advice and they take it and I'll go do the thing that doesn't make sense. Actually, you know what's funny was I was living 2 lies that I see people live. First one is this: First one is, if I just make more money, it will change everything. That's a total lie. And we tell ourselves that all the time. If I just get the next raise, these demons, the way I manage my money, will all of a sudden become better. If you can't handle $20,000, I'll tell you what, it just gets worse when you get 50. It gets worse when you get 70. It gets worse when you get 100. I had a client I was at a TV station for 9 years as the money guy in Detroit, and I worked with one of the anchors. She made $350,000 a year, and she couldn't make it work. And the reason she couldn't make it work had nothing to do with the amount of money she was making. I mean, that was huge money. I mean, and by the way, and this was 15 years ago, so we could almost double that in today's standards, right, with inflation. So she's making money hand over fist. It was the second that we actually figured out how to get her budget in order, how to get her lifestyle in order, how to understand that the key to this whole thing was building a difference between the amount coming in and the amount going out. Almost Mr. Money Mustache's very simple mathematics around financial independence. Just spend less, bring in more. So making more money didn't matter how much money I made until I figured out how to actually manage my money. That was number one. Number two was I also thought that I could hang around with a bunch of people that were big time spenders chasing the Joneses. I was in this lifestyle. A lot of financial planners, by the way, are in this lifestyle of more. I mean, it's the same thing as lawyers, doctors. Bill, you see this all the time with doctors. You see this all the time. They're just more. Not even spelled M-O-R-E. It's like M-O-A-R, like more. So I was living that, and I realized I needed to surround myself with better people. And it wasn't that I got rid of my old friends. I still hung out with some of those friends. Over time, we kind of drifted away. But I set up really a board of directors, which were people that I respected, that were doing great things with their life and with their money. And I actually formalized that. And when I changed the people around me to people that could teach me, who had already walked that walk, that was phenomenal. And that's why I like things like, we talked about the economy conference earlier. Highly recommend that. I love CUtFI. I'm going to be at CUtFI Midwest this year. I was at CUtFI Texas last year. A couple of years ago, I was in the one in California, the West Coast one. I love those. Find a group of people, find people that are where you want to be. But then these people should be people that know you. While I love the idea of internet forums, I mean, you guys have a great group of people online. We have a great group of people online. I always kind of get frustrated when I see somebody ask a group of strangers a question and then the stranger answers. The stranger doesn't know you. You don't know the stranger. Earl in Peoria can't zip up his pants. He spends all day on Facebook and you're asking him what to do with your 401k. Are you crazy? Like, surround yourself with people who know you, that you know have your back. And for me, people that will argue with me. I love people that will argue with me and go, Joe, you know what? You're full of it. You can do better. And that was great. So that was my first part. The big part about me starting late, though, was I actually, at age 40 was when I got serious. At age 40, I've already solved a lot of my money problems. I'm doing good, not great. And I get this letter in my box. I'm working with American Express. I get this letter from a guy in management who I had a lot of trust in, was really a mentor. He's actually 2 years younger than me and was a mentor. And Chris was writing his 2 weeks notice letter. Blew me away. Chris is leaving the company. And Chris's letter said, I like financial planning, but I don't love it. It's about 90%. But I don't believe that my life is about living at 90%. It's about living at 100%. And the frustrating thing is I spend so much time, so many hours of my life I spend doing this job that's 90% that I don't have time to figure out what the other 10% is. So I've decided I've done a good job of saving. I've got a nice emergency fund. I'm not going anywhere else. I'm just going to take a sabbatical. I'm going to leave and I'm going to figure out what it is because I think I have other mountains to climb. And that didn't just hit me. That hit, by the way, my co-host, OG, I knew tangentially. He was with American Express too. It changed his life. It changed my life because he knows this guy. Chris is his name. I thought he was being metaphorical when he said he had other mountains to climb. He went and climbed Mount Everest twice. He's climbed most of the tall mountains around the world. He now runs an adventure travel company. and he has the time of his life. He's in Boulder, and he found his 100%. And so I was looking at that and I thought the same thing. I'm like, financial planning, I like it. I don't love it. I would love to become a high school teacher and a track coach. My wife and I met each other as middle school track coaches. And I thought, I'm going to go back and do that. And I'd already got my financial picture in shape I didn't know what the term was then, but we've named it now. It was CUtFI, right? So I was going to be okay if I made the move. Plus I knew my business was a separate entity, so I had a sellable thing. And so I was able to also have that money. So between the money that I was going to get from selling this business and the fact that I'd cleaned up my financial situation gave me the ability to age 40 to hit reset. Now, 40 is an interesting year because, as you guys know, for the average person in America, 40 is when you start earning your peak earning years. Right? So we talk about starting over. I'm 16 years into this field, and I'm going to go hit the reset button at the same time that I could have been cha-chinging the cash register. It was time for me to actually get paid. I'd put in all the hard work. The job was finally getting easy, but it was only 90%. And I think for a lot of people who are in the catching up to FI community, you might be there too. And I got to say, I don't look back. I don't think that was a bad trade-off. Like, even if you're not CUtFI, you certainly want to make sure you have an emergency fund. You got your debt in order. Like, you are set up to go. You don't just want to go to your boss and go, you know, I heard this great podcast with Jackie and Bill and I quit my job today. Don't do that.
We haven't heard that one. I don't want to hear that one. That would be scary.
No, but get yourself set up. Do the 100% thing. Do the 100% thing, because I didn't end up becoming a high school teacher or a track coach, but that led me to the fact that my friends, I was doing media, as I mentioned before, my friends asked me to start writing for them, their newsletters, and they're making videos for them, writing scripts for them when they were on TV. I did that. I realized I could do that in shorts and a t-shirt. My kids were in high school and I could be home with them. That led to a blog. The blog was called The Free Financial Advisor. Free Financial Advisor led to a podcast we called Worst of the Free Financial Advisor, became a podcast called Two Guys and Your Money, which became a show called The Stacking Benjamins Show. And It was, but if I would have never done that at age 40, I wouldn't have gotten to be on Catching Up to FI, which is, you know, the highlight of my existence.
You have made it.
That
Once
is.
you're on our show, you know you have made it. We only have the big people on this show.
I'm only here to tell you I'm done, Bill. There's nothing left. What do I do after this?
No, we also tell stories of, we've had people who are on their first podcast who are telling their story of catching up. So we try and span the spectrum.
We are super excited for one of our new partners. It's called Create Your Own Financial Plan. And this is a comprehensive video course by our friend Cody Garrett. He's with Measure Twice Money, and he's been on our podcast. And we love this course that he has put out. So if you are a true do-it-yourselfer and you've been wanting to put together a financial plan, check him out. I've gone through the course myself, and I have nothing but praise for it and the quality of work that Cody Garrett does. Cody Garrett is a CFP, so you're getting the mind and the experience of a CFP that you can trust. You just need to go to measuretwicemoney.com/catching up, and you will get $100 off this course. And again, that is Measure Twice Money Catching Up.
You made some big mistakes along the way too. Our audience has made some big mistakes. Can you come clean and be transparent with the kinds of mistakes you made that may have been made by our audience?
Oh my God. There isn't a mistake I didn't make. I mean, so the biggest mistake, the most costly mistake was two. Number one was when I was a first-year financial planner, because I owned my business as a franchise, I was then a 1099 employee, meaning I wasn't really employed at all, right? I owned my business. So when I got compensation in for my financial planning stuff, I had to withhold taxes. I had no idea what that was. And back in 1993, the type of organization I worked for was more of a sales organization. I learned everything about how to sell you that you needed financial help that you needed product at that time, right? Because but my career started off as commissions that ended up as fees. So it actually spanned both sides of that equation. But when I started, there were very, very few fee-only financial planners. So I start off in this organization. I'm very good at it. I make a ton of money. I think in 1993, I made about $87,000. And I was one of the top 5% of new advisors in the Detroit area. And I remember it was like maybe April 10th of the following year, I went, well, I got to file my taxes. And so I got a lead on a guy, and the guy goes, oh, you only give me 5 days? I'm like, yeah. He goes, well, you must have it all together. I'm like, have what together? Like, what are you talking about? No idea. So, and by the way, the scary thing is, hear this. My clients thought I was a financial advisor. I don't even know how taxes work. I got no idea. So there's a whole podcast there. But he comes to me then on April 15th and says, I owe something like $22,000 between my wife's income and mine. And he could have said $500. I didn't have it. I didn't have $1. I had every dollar that came in the front door. I went ahead and spent, and more. I had tons of credit card debt, maybe $25,000 of credit card debt. So I spent all that. And so I remember my first reaction was, I got really mad at this guy, Bill. I'm like, how could you do this to me? What's funny is Bill didn't do crap to me. I did it to myself, right? But my first thing was to lash out. Like, how could you do this? What are you talking about? How come you couldn't? Now, what is bad is that I didn't choose a CPA with the heart of a teacher, number one, because I tried to get Bill then to teach me what I did wrong, and Bill couldn't teach me. I ended up with a wonderful woman a few years later named Susan, who sat me down and said, here's what we're looking for. Here's the way you set this up. Here's how you keep your books. Here's how we make sure we never get in this situation again. But until that time, and I said a few years later, I did the second best strategy, which was when I found out I owed that much money in taxes, guys, guess what I did about it?
You didn't pay him?
Oh, heck no. And you know what? I didn't even file the next year, Jackie, because I knew I'd have to come up with that money too. And then I didn't file the year after that. So I went 3 years. And what's bad is, so my tax bill between fees and everything ended up being about around $90,000 that I owed the IRS. The bad news was a lot of that was penalties, but a lot of those penalties were based on the fact that I didn't even know how to categorize my business expenses. I had so many business expenses that I never kept track of, that I never accounted for, that I probably, even after the penalties, owed maybe a quarter of that. So I kind of call it, other people have called it this before, other things. I call it my stupid tax. I paid $90,000 of stupid tax. And then I went and I finally found Susan, and I came clean with her because the IRS then was after me. The IRS was sending me letters. And I went, okay, I can't keep doing this. And number one, I felt like a sham anyway. I felt like a liar. I'm sitting here with some of the top engineers, the smartest people in Detroit, and I'm helping them with their money. And my money is just a disaster. And so I find this woman, Susan, who is wonderful. And Susan said, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to call the IRS. I'm like, oh no, we don't want to do that. She goes, that's the first thing we're doing. We're calling them and we're going to beg forgiveness and we're going to see what they got. I'm like, well, what if I don't like it? She goes, it doesn't matter. You screwed it up. The only way we can make this better is to face your fear, right? And nobody wants to do that. Feel the fear and do it anyway. And I felt the fear. She set it up with the IRS and we ended up on a payment plan. That was part of a bigger get out of debt plan, that whole period of my life that I talked about where I was starting to get my stuff together, correct all these mistakes. And it was wild. Once I faced my fear, I got out of debt really quickly, like really quickly. I started focusing on the right things, which was control my expenses, grow my income. I gamified it. So every month I had a set amount of money I had to send to my creditors and had to send to the IRS as a creditor. And I would always try to beat that number, right? And then next thing you know, I'm trying to double the number. And I'm working not just my main job, but I'm going out doing these, we call them side gigs now, right? I'm doing all this stuff. And by gamifying it, it took me about 3.5 years to get the debt completely wiped. But that wasn't even the cool part. The cool part was 3.5 years later, I had so much momentum then that turned into far more assets than I thought at a much quicker pace than I could have ever believed that I was capable of. I would have never thought. I just had to keep the momentum going, and I did, and ended up in a good place.
So, Joe, I have a quick question. So you were a financial planner while you were dealing with this, and you said your finances was in shambles. Do you think you were unique? Like, were there a lot of financial planners that might have been in the same boat, you think?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
I mean, I found that I don't traditionally practice financial planning, but I do have my CFP and I'm around that world. And I feel like I do see that a lot. I guess it would be crazy if a potential client said, well, let me see your finances. They would probably not do that. I mean, I'm pretty open with mine, but I know most financial planners won't. So that's something to take into consideration if you are looking for a financial professional. Not that they're going to tell you exactly what their finances look like, but keep in mind that they may not have everything together as well, because they don't teach you that in financial planning school, do they?
No, not at all. And they do. As little as they do now, they did even less back then, way less back then. I mean, then it was clearly almost all sales, right? And I'll say this, there was something that I vehemently used to disagree with. I remember Susie Orman on some show in the 90s saying, do not hire a financial pro unless they have 10 years of experience. And I thought, oh, that's crap. That's baloney. I know what I'm doing. I know. I think I've been in business like 4 years. I go back and I look at that guy that was me going, no, I disagree with that. I wholeheartedly agree with that now. Because if they've been around 10 years, they have gotten their act together. I mean, you're around it every day, and that guilt, right? The Edgar Allan Poe beating heart in the wall, where you could just hear the telltale heart of, I'm a sham. I don't think it's just me. I think it's any financial planner would go through that. If you're faced with that every single day, I do think the experience is there. And I also think that over my first 10 years, I saw everything. Maybe not everything, but I'm talking about Jackie, I saw like 99% of all the weirdness that you'll see out there. Right. But like in year number 4, people would come in with something and I go, I have no idea. I've never heard of that before. Year 10, you could tell me the wildest story on earth. And I would have gone, okay, yeah, you're not the first person to tell me that story. So let's get busy and fix it.
Well, what you're saying applies wholeheartedly to medicine. Physicians have all the same problems. It's almost synonymous. The lifestyle inflation and being 10 years into the game is true. You can't make this shit up. Once you've heard all these stories and nothing surprises you anymore. And so you actually do want to go to a physician as well, who's been through the ringer, heard all the stories, and then sees all the patterns. So that, okay, we can do this with you this time. Let's point you in this direction. That's what we do with our healthcare. We don't have a financial advisor, but that's what I would do if I needed one.
Yeah.
All right, Joe. We have some questions from the audience, but let's start with a little more trivia. Give people a pause. All right.
You're killing me.
Jackie, do you want to take a trivia question here? We got a few more. Do you want to scroll back there and give him one that maybe can stump him?
I feel like you're feeding me my own medicine right here.
We try to be welcoming.
Okay, how about a short one? How about the state that ranks #1 in Swiss cheese production? Any idea? What state?
Well, it's got to be Wisconsin. We got to go with the cheeseheads. Let's go Wisconsin, Jackie.
I think that's a great guess, but is that right, Bill? That's not right.
No, it's not. Actually, Ohio. Leads the game
Ohio.
in Swiss cheese production.
We're not far from Wisconsin. Okay. Yeah, we're not far. And I knew I think of cheese, Wisconsin, when it comes to cheese. But yeah, it's Ohio. Can you believe that?
I can't.
I didn't know that one either.
I didn't know that one either.
We got one that's geared specifically for Frank Vasquez. He loves roadside attractions. He seeks them out wherever he goes. He found like a haunted castle in the Knoxville area that was covered in weeds, and he goes and visits it, and it had a pet cemetery. You know, this guy, it's part of his just travel plan. And so for Frank, if you're out there, Uncle Frank, which state houses the world's largest cuckoo clock?
I think there is so I think of cuckoo clocks, I think of Bavaria. And I think that in Washington State, there is a cool Bavarian community out in the mountains that I've never been to, but we've talked about when I go visit my son sometime, we're going to venture out there. He's been there and said it's amazing. Everything looks very German in that area. So I'm going to say state of Washington.
You know, Joe, I told you at the front end that we're doing Ohio and Tennessee trivia. You had.
I was about to say that was a well thought out answer, but it's wrong.
Well thought out wrong answer.
Right.
But you had a 50-50 chance. And
Ohio
you told me
or Tennessee?
You went off the reservation.
See what it would be like playing games with me? You beat me at a board game. You beat me immediately at a board game.
Just like our audience, and that's good for you. Joe is not perfect. You do shows with Paula, and you have the answer for everything. And we have managed to stump Joe. We're going to have to call this show the Stump Joe Show.
Yes.
Okay.
It's not hard.
We'll have a few more coming back to Tennessee in a minute, but we have a few questions that from our audience. It's sort of a Ask Me Anything. So the second half of our show is going to be letting you give us a little bit of financial advice. Our first question comes from Catherine B., and she's one of our moderators. And her general statement was, can you please explain, this is a little bit in the weeds, the efficient frontier to me. She doesn't really understand it. This is a difficult one, but you gave a talk called Fire 201 at the 5 Financial Freedom Retreat in Bali, and you explained efficiency using critters or animals. Do you remember that?
I do remember that, yeah.
Okay. Maybe you want to start with that definition of efficiency, but then tell us about, in sort of lay terms for our audience, what is the efficient frontier and why is it maybe important?
Well, let me tell you where I really started, because my job at FI 2.0 was to dispel some myths that a lot of the practitioners in the fire movement really don't think about. It's like we had 1.0, which was we discover a new world. We discover a new area. We're on this boat, on this journey. We get to the new area and we all high five ourselves because we found a new area. I believe that's what the fire movement is. We discovered this new thing, really not a new thing, right? Fire was there before the term fire, but this new way of defining, a new way of thinking about it. It's super exciting to talk about financial independence. A lot of people in the movement, but then I feel like people didn't get off the boat. Like we sat and we pointed, we're like, hey, we found it. High five, high five, high five. But there are things that we can do past that will make this even better. And I'll give you an example, which is this. I love LOVE, J.L. Collins' book, The Simple Path to Wealth. I love it. I love it. I love it because one of the main questions I was asked when I was on television, now that we have the show, is I'm just starting out. I don't know what investment to pick. And I worry, I freak out about all the different investments to pick. And J.L. Collins picked that lock for us. We got rid of the biggest thing that gives us heartburn, makes our blood pressure go up. He said, relax, everybody. You know what you do? You just buy the total stock market index. And you know what? When you do that, you will get there and you will be okay. You never have to change it. It's amazing. I think the Simple Path to Wealth is just an incredible thing for people starting out. Here's the rub. I also know that J.L. Collins is a hell of a brilliant guy, and he's very good at naming his books. He didn't call it the optimal path to wealth. He didn't call it the best path to wealth. He didn't call it the kabam, I'm making more money than any other way type of wealth. He called it the simple path to wealth. And when you look at what practitioners have done, once your money, and I think the time to look at this is when you get to the point, this really comes from Nick Majuli, who wrote a wonderful book. He has a blog called Of Dollars and Data, which is a really nice blog. And Nick in his book said the time when you start getting more analytical about your investments is when, pick a period, let's say a month, over a month, if that motion that's created by the returns of those investments matters more than the amount you put in it. So let's say over a month, I put $1,000 in and it only grows or loses $500. I don't need to think about it. But if it's $1,000 goes in and it moves $2,000, just what was already in there, it's past time to get more analytical because it's going to start to pay dividends. Getting away from VTSAX, or the total market index. Now, there's two ways to go about this. The first way is to follow a guy that I love, and I know you guys love, Paul Merriman. Mm-hmm. Paul Merriman talks about taking that simple path to wealth and moving up the number of funds that you have. I get frustrated when I hear people delineate. You'll see this. People have a 3-fund approach, a 5-fund approach, an 8-fund approach. You know what? It's going to take you 5 minutes longer to do the 8 funds than it will to do the 3 funds. It truly will. Maybe not the first time when you first do it, but to go with a little bit more diversification, you're going to get closer to this thing called the efficient frontier. And I'll go over what that means in just a second. But when you get closer to the efficient frontier, what you find, what Paul Merriman found, was that he could beat a simple index. If you started with $100,000 and you gave it, I believe it was 35 years. Not going to, I mean, you can fact check me on that because I don't remember the exact amount of time. It's been a while since I gave that talk, but it is in the 30, 35, 40 year range. You give it that amount of time, you create an extra $4 million, an extra over that one simple path to wealth. And now the thing I got back from people when I started talking about this, I'm like, you're giving away money. A lot of these people in the FIRE movement, they're like, no. I live a frugal lifestyle. I think about the dollars that I spend. I make sure that my budget is true to what I love to do. And then I go and I blow money on my asset allocation. I won't blow money on an expensive financial advisor. I won't blow money on stuff that doesn't light me up. I won't blow money on all these things. And then I blow money by not taking an extra hour a year to get a little bit more analytical about my financial asset allocation. That $4 million, people came back to me and they said, well, you know what, Joe, I'm doing fine. I won't spend it. So if I won't spend it, then it's just $4 million extra dollars. And my answer to that always is, good for you. Like, that's so good for you, but think about what you could do. Sure, you won't spend it, but you've got this community of people around you. You might want to build a legacy. You might want to build intergenerational wealth. You might have, I'm part of a great nonprofit here in Texarkana. If I could give them $4 million to help us build better walking trails and safe routes to school, like, how great would that be? The things that I could do because of my ability to understand this stuff just a little bit, not even a ton, can bring this additional wealth over and above the simple path to wealth. So don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I don't like the simple path. I love the simple path to wealth, but I think that's the place to start. I think then you graduate when you get to that point where, and generally, by the way, for everybody wondering when that is, that's about when your portfolio reaches about $100,000. You get to about $100,000, it's time to get more analytical. So this is all based on modern portfolio theory, which is this thing called the efficient frontier. The efficient frontier won a Nobel Prize. A guy named Dr. Harry Markowitz was looking at different asset classes. And if you think about just a graph, right? We've got the axes going north-south and we got the east-west axes. So let's take just north-south. On the north-south axes, he put returns. And for any time period and any tax consideration, some investments will give you a really low return and other ones will give you a really high return. So as an example, cash is going to be on the bottom, right? And then collectibles could be way up high, right? You could potentially, from a collectible, get a lot of money. But what's the other difference between cash and collectibles? Risk. If I buy a baseball card thinking it could pay me a ton of money, well, there's a hell of a lot of risk that it probably won't, right? So they showed risk going left to right, very little risk to very high risk. And what Dr. Markowitz did, and in my book, I thought about this like Markowitz pours himself a glass of wine because he's cooking now and he's all excited, right? He puts on maybe a little Barry White because he's like grooving and he starts thinking, this is pretty cool. I think I'm onto something. So then he takes large company stock and it's about halfway up both ways. It's much higher return than cash, a lot less risk than collectibles. Small companies way out further to the right. International companies, he puts all different, and then he gets even crazier. He goes, what if I did like 50-50 stocks and bonds or different types of bonds? So he litters this entire graph with dots. And guess what he finds? He finds there are no dots north of this imaginary line. And this imaginary line is what we call the efficient frontier. And what the efficient frontier means is that the thing we all want is BS. And what do we all want? We all want huge returns and no risk. And it doesn't exist. So somebody tells you something looks too good to be true, it proved that it is. It also, there's another rule here called the law of diminishing returns. Initially, when you bring the risk out just a little bit, you find the line goes north at first, but then it starts going east-west much more. So you can take more and more and more risk, and it's just not going to pay for itself, right? So what does this mean to the average person? I start off with a fund like VTSAX, like the Vanguard of the Fidelity one-size-fits-all total market return fund that will get us there. It will get us there. But I pop that on the efficient frontier. It's nowhere near the efficient frontier. And I can make one of two moves. If the wiggle in that fund is too much for me, I can move it left over to the line. What does that mean? I'm going to get the same return with this new diversification, because when I move it to the line, it's going to tell me what mix of investments would get me the same return, but with a lot less up and down, a lot less what they call standard deviation. I could do that. So if my client back when I was a financial planner wasn't sleeping well and we were getting the right return, just move it left. And now they can sleep much better. I know their portfolio is going to wiggle less, still same outcome. Or if they're sleeping good, I can move it straight up to the line, which means I'm not going to take any more risk than I was taking with the total stock market index, but I'm going to get a much better return than that got over the time period that I'm looking at. That is what, if you want to use just a sample portfolio, one of Paul Merriman's portfolios will do to VTSAX. But if you really want to do this right, Jackie's a financial planner. You actually figure out where you need to be to reach your goals, right? It's neither one of those. It's okay, what do I need? And then you go find that spot on the efficient frontier. And what's cool is once you know that, this solves so many problems. Which investment choices you made that you should keep, which ones should be swapped out, and you know what asset class to swap it out for. None of the efficient frontier stuff that I know, Uncle Frank might know, but I don't know, doesn't tell me what fund to buy. I got to still do that research, but it will say, hey, you don't have any money in real estate right now, or you got way too much money in large company stocks, not enough in small companies. What's weird about this too, is that often it will tell you to buy investments that by themselves are more aggressive than what you already own. That tends to freak people out. But I'll tell you what's cool about it is because you have this mishmash of different roller coasters you're on instead of one, you could actually add 3 investment choices to that one fund that are more aggressive than what you have now and potentially have it be less risky than what you're doing now because you went from one fund, one roller coaster to 4 roller coasters. So that is, I hope I kept people there. I found it fascinating. I don't know if you guys fell asleep.
Well, honestly, without the graph, I think you did a perfect job of explaining the efficient frontier.
It is hard to explain on a podcast, the math, but I could visualize it.
Well, you had your hands up, you were waving. We kind of got it. North, south, east,
now that's
west.
If they watch the YouTube.
Well, we want people to watch the YouTube.
Yeah.
And, you got to see Joe's facial expressions and he talks with his hands. So this is the way to do it now. This is the way of the future in podcasts. Go to the YouTube, subscribe. Watch Joe make fun of himself.
Yeah. Watch me gesticulate and watch my shoulder go out of my socket as I'm explaining Harry Markowitz with Barry White. By the way, I heard that analogy is the way I think about it because I always think what we do is sexy, right? This efficient frontier stuff, very sexy. So I think of Harry Markowitz being just this badass, maybe in leather pants or something. Probably. I've been told it might not be the case.
Hey, Catching Up to FI audience. This is Bill Young telling you that we have some great sponsors here on our show these days. Jeremy Schneider, who's been on the show and is the founder of Personal Finance Club, has created a couple of great courses that he is giving to our audience at a $30 discount. Click on the link in the show notes to get this deal, and you can have the course, How to Money Like a Millionaire, which normally is $99, but you can get it for $69 using the code CUTOFI if you click on the link in our show notes. The other course that he does is called Build Wealth by Investing in Index Funds. And again, this course is only $99 normally, and it's such a great value already, but you can get $30 off and pay $69 for this course as well. Now, why not take them both? buy his ultimate personal finance bundle, which again is normally $149, but you get $30 off the bundle if you use the code CUTOFI. Go to the show notes and find the link for these courses and get started on your personal finance journey. All right, Jackie, let's do another listener question, and you pick one this time.
Yeah, so let's see here. How about James C? Let's see what his question is. This is from our Facebook, and James C says, I suspect that many people in this group are looking at the standard path to wealth and retirement, i.e. many years of careful saving and investing, and thinking there's no way I'll ever get there. Does Joe have any thoughts or stories of people who have found success by taking a different path, like lifestyle, career change, etc.? Maybe just a shift in mindset.
Oh, Jackie, I love this question. What's their name?
James C. from our Facebook group.
James, this is a fantastic question because I even love the premise of this question, which is sometimes the problem is not a math problem. Sometimes we need to work through what you truly want. And I'll tell you, I had a client once who would have been a perfect Catching Up to Fi listener, had a lot of life thrown at her, right? Like a lot of us have. And she did not have enough money to do what she wanted to do. I'm from Michigan. She wanted a house along that West Michigan bank looking out over Lake Michigan so she could watch the sunset every day. Well, I'm from Kalamazoo originally and maybe an hour from that area. And I'll tell you, that land ain't cheap. And it's never been cheap. And she could not afford her dream. What she really wanted to do was have this house where she could sit and watch the sunset. So we talked about it for a while. We actually came up with this plan that ended up being way more awesome than we thought it was. Because at first you start off with just, we do this when we create Stacking Benjamin shows. We have like a 5-week production schedule and Doc G helps us. We have a professional comedian and we sit in this room and we come up with all these really dumb ideas. But over time in collaboration, they get better and better and better. And by the time we record it, I think they're pretty funny and they're pretty instructive. And I think that's what you got to do. You got to just start throwing stuff out there. So what we threw out was this: the land across the road from these super expensive houses were a lot less expensive. That land across the road, much less expensive. And we actually found a hill with a beautiful view of Lake Michigan. You had to look over some other properties, but had a beautiful view of Lake Michigan, and we brought the price of that property down. The sad news was she still couldn't afford it. But then we talked about what she really wanted from retirement. And here's the deal. She was a complete extrovert, loved being around people, didn't want to isolate herself. One of the biggest problems we see in retirement, right? You guys talk about this all the time, is that people isolate. Men especially do this. You see the reason a lot of men die early is because they just don't hang out with anybody anymore. They hung out with people from work. They leave work and now they don't do anything. And so she didn't want to do that. So she was open to having a job as long as she could. She actually bought a beautiful Victorian home. She got a loan from the local community to help her. It was a combination of grant and loan to refurbish it. And she was able to get the property rezoned so a bed and breakfast could be there. She turned this Victorian house into a bed and breakfast. It brought in money, and every single day she got to meet new people, which was one of the things she wanted to do. And at the end of the day, she got to sit on that porch with all of her new friends or whichever friend she wanted to and watch the sun go down over Lake Michigan. Just by changing her mindset and looking at the goal differently, she was actually able to get this thing she thought was unreachable.
That is a beautiful story. That is a great answer to that question. And that speaks exactly to what a financial planner or advisor should be doing. Start with the goal in mind and find a way to help that person make it happen and realize their dreams, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my friend Roger Whitney, the retirement answer man, said this best. I quote him all the time. He said, if you ever meet an advisor, if you're hiring an advisor and they begin with product and not process, you should run. It's always process. Bill, what are you trying to do? If they open them up with, what are you trying to do? Tell me about what you're trying to do. And then let's map out what you're trying to do. And then the very last thing we do is we explore the products that do that. That's a great financial planner. If they start off with, hey, I got a product that has no volatility, but participates in the stock market, but can never go down, right? Your indexed annuity, like you got to freaking run. Like
the real financial planning process, the cycle, pretty much the last step is any recommendations. The first step is educating, getting to know the person, giving feedback, asking more questions and things like that. And then you can start to recommend. And that's kind of the easy part. That's what's already prepared. There's already something there, some lever you can pull, but all the other stuff makes up, okay, how on earth do I know what this person's need if I haven't talked to them, I don't know them. So that becomes the bottom line of if you want to work with a professional.
And Jackie, I want to give you a hug because that is 100%. I think that the problem that we have that I see all the time is that people blow up their own plan, right? They blow it up. They do the dumb thing. Like people go buy an index fund and then they day trade it. They don't think they're day trading it, but 3 or 4 times a year, I get a thought about the election or about the Fed or about the inflation or whatever. And they move the money in and out. And maybe it's only 3 or 4 times a year, but you really think you're smarter than the market? Like, are you kidding me? So we blow up our own stuff. What I think makes your financial plan stickier is if it starts off with what you want to do. And you see these products not as an annuity that doesn't go down, but you see this product as, this is my house to build an Airbnb fund, or this is my fund to get that Airbnb going fund. And I found that when we put these tags on the different accounts and what they did, you were less likely to blow up your plan. You would then keep it. But it's because, Jackie, exactly what you said. We start off with, what are you trying to do? And then we match the product to it. But wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah. All right, Joe, we want to give you a chance to get a trivia question right. You've gotten half a point.
I got 1/2 right.
Half a point. So what's trivia about Ohio and Tennessee? Let's remind you of that. Which state was the birthplace of Mountain Dew, cotton candy, and the moon pie?
Oh, the moon pie's got to be Tennessee. It's got to be Tennessee.
You are ding 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 ding.
And we knew it was something Southern because I've only really seen those down south. Maybe they've made their way up north by now, but yay, you got that one right.
One more Tennessee one because you have a great podcast, i.e. radio show. Which state is home to the world's oldest radio show?
Oh, the world's oldest radio show. Well, you said we got to have another Tennessee one, so I'm going to think that was...
that was terrible.
I'm going to cheat.
I can't believe I did that.
I'm going to cheat, Bill.
But which one is it?
I will take the win. I think it is the Tennessee.
Okay, it is Tennessee.
What
is the name of the show?
I have no idea.
Oh, come on. Think about it.
No, it's not Dave Ramsey.
Grand Ole Opry.
Oh, of course. Duh. Yeah, much easier. I thought we were going closer to home. I'm like, I think our friend Wes Moss has been around on the radio longer than Dave has been. So I thought, yeah, who knew?
So I gave you 100% opportunity to get it right because I was stupid. Thanks for getting it right and not blowing it when I tell you which state the answer is in.
Every chance I get to cheat.
All right. Jackie, do we have any other questions from the audience that you think we can cover in our remaining time?
I think so. Frank Vasquez, now he is long-winded, so I'm not going to ask all 3 questions, but we know he is a genius, okay? It's like crazy, but he's a genius. This does come up a lot, so that's why I wanted to ask it about target date funds, because a lot of people, I consider that the easy button, and that's typically what employers will default you in if they do automatic enrollment into the plan. So he just wants to know, he says that recent academic research, he provided the link and all that, but he did say Joe has expressed skepticism on the use of target date funds instead of index funds. Recent academic research suggests that he has been right all along. That's you, Joe. And the target date funds create a drag of about 1% over time due to fees and other problems. So can you speak to target date funds and what your thoughts are on them?
What's funny is I think Frank and I have been in 2 economies together, and it's always my goal to actually meet Frank. So I've been in the same place. as Frank, and we've never gotten together. And I feel like I need to give him a hug for this one because target date funds have traditionally been the easy button. I don't like them for two reasons. Number one is I think J.L. Collins has the easy button right with the total stock market index. And the reason is I don't think, especially when you're starting out, that you need bonds in your portfolio in any way. I also don't think you need to pay that much attention to asset allocation. So if you're going to use one of these robo-advisors when you first start out that do things like tax loss harvesting. I put my first $100 in, I'm going to do tax loss harvesting. That's a financial planning joke. For people that don't know financial planning, there's nothing to do there. But that's their target market, right? People starting out always go to one of these robo-advisors that use target date funds. But the second reason I don't like target date funds is because a lot of target date funds have a lot of fees in the way most of them work. Not all of them. I will say that the Vanguard target date funds, the Fidelity target date funds, the ones that a lot of people work for the federal government, the ones that are in the thrift savings plan, they're fine. They're fine. I still don't like them, but they're fine. But the problem is, you know how on Sunday afternoon, your favorite restaurant will have that Sunday brunch? If you ever read Tony Bourdain's book, Kitchen Confidential, he talks about the reason they do that is the chef has all this stuff in the back of the freezer that didn't sell all week. So they turn into a bunch of salads. They offer Sunday brunch. They mark it up and everybody wants to go and it's crappy food. This is kind of what most companies do with their target date fund. They will take these funds that don't sell a ton. They'll stick it in to represent a category. So you already have a crappy fund that represents his investment category, run expensively. And then not only does the fund family stick a bunch of these together into a salad, then they charge you an additional fee because you have them all together as a package. So you have fees on top of fees and not phenomenal product underneath the structure. So I don't like that. That still isn't the reason why I don't like it. I don't like them also because you land the plane too soon. What most people do is they will pick a fund that's based on, let's say, their retirement date. And even though the fund may continue to be a little bit aggressive, the fund before retirement, mostly because the asset manager doesn't want to get sued, it doesn't have as much to do with you as you think. They definitely don't want to get sued if things don't go right. They will begin backing down the risk fairly aggressively. And when they do that, the problem is most of us are coming in hot, especially people catching up to FI. We're coming in really hot. Like we need stuff to work. So if we use this rule called the rule of 72, and I know I'm mixing metaphors a little bit, but the rule of 72 talks about how quickly your money's going to double. It's this cool mathematical thing where if you take the interest rate you think you're going to get, you divide it into 72, it tells you how many years it's going to take your money to double. So if I think I'm going to get 8%, divide 8 into 72, my money's going to double every 9 years. And then back of the envelope math, now every 9 years, I'm going to get that money. Well, what happens when I get to age 55 and I want to retire at 62? My target date fund is backing down the risk level and damn it, I need one more double. I got to have that last double. And all the research says that if you keep enough cash in a position to maybe last you 2.5, maybe 3 years, if you're very risk averse, and stick with that total market index fund, you're going to do much, much better and you're still going to get the double, or what I prefer, the efficient frontier. And it's funny, this is an area, I love Brad Barrett. He's a great guy and he disagrees with me vehemently on this. He's like, no, Joe, people need target date funds and they need these back of the envelope calculations. I told Brad the same thing I'm going to tell you guys. I will always vote that you're smart enough to do this. You are smart enough to find the efficient frontier. You're smart enough to go with your own 8 funds. You can build your own target date fund that's going to be much closer to your actual goal. And the cool thing is, instead of having a crappy target date fund where you don't even know what the hell you're in, you actually know why you're there, which makes it stickier. You set it up yourself, which makes it stickier. The key is behaviorally, you want to make sure your plan works for you. And if you know what you got, you know why you bought it. Versus a target date fund, which the only reason you did it was because your company said this is the easy button. I'm going with you being smart enough to do this the right way. So that's why I prefer start off with the total stock market index. You get to about 100,000, switch to the efficient frontier, manage it that way. Hopefully then by the time you get to retirement, the efficient frontier is gone from this. I hate the name efficient frontier. I hate it because it makes it sounds so academic.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm like, Bill, should we be talking about that? Those are some big words.
I know, it's horrible. And then like we did a class for some of our stackers and we had like 20 of us. And you know what? Everybody came out of that class going, this isn't anywhere near as hard as I thought it was going to be. And it's not. Right. And that's the sad thing. But yeah, no target date funds for me.
This has been great, right, Jackie? I mean, we've come full circle on the efficient frontier, and we've touched on many little aspects that are technical, but Joe's explained them in very understandable terms. I love it. And, you know, how do we close this show? We could talk to him for hours.
Well, you know, what we really want to know what he's up to now. Joe, tell us what you're up to now, because we love the way you explain things. We love Stacking Benjamin. That's been around it was one of my first shows, I have to say that. But you continue to grow and you stood the test of time. So what is next for Stacking Benjamins?
Well, thanks, Jackie. And please stop. Keep going. Please stop. Keep going. Please stop. Keep going. Here's what we're up to now. People know us for a podcast, but we're actually transitioning more into being a financial education company. And we're building some guides in areas that I don't see enough of. And this is what I don't see. Most people don't know how to use their benefits at work very well. And I'll give you an example. And Jackie is the financial planner. This one, there's a type of insurance people buy because it's really cheap and they sit at a desk all day and they don't need it. And it's called accidental death and dismemberment coverage. But we buy it because it's cheap. Now, don't get me wrong. If you don't have it, there's always a downside to getting rid of insurance, and you got to know what that is. But if you go through and you understand your benefits better, you wouldn't choose accidental death and dismemberment in the first place. You'd go for a good, robust disability coverage plan instead. So understanding your benefits is our guide coming out in September. It's going to come out right at the beginning of September, and it's going to cover everything. We start off with a quick start guide. If you don't want to understand anything, we got a checklist. Just do this, do this, do this, do this, do this, and you're going to do way better than you're doing now. And then we have an in-depth guide of videos and snippets from the podcast, written areas where we dive into how it actually works for the nerds that want to know. The cool thing about the guide too is the average person's going to change jobs 7 times during their career, and the rules are going to change. I mean, look at the number of times the rules of the government's changed the rules on us, or your company changes benefits. You have a lifetime subscription to this guide as long as we continue to make it, which I continue to make this for a hell of a long time. So it's stackingbenjamins.com/benefits is the URL to go. We're going to release it in September, but you can get an email. If you give us that, we'll send you an email the second that we release it. And if you want to be on that list, and as a thank you to Jackie and Bill, we were talking before this, I'd love to also give you guys something I used when I was a financial planner until then, because this isn't coming out, for a little bit, the guide is. So I want to give you something right now. I have this thing that I used to call my Sherlock Holmes sheet. And when I was a financial planner, if I was looking at somebody's budget and I was trying to find money like hidden in the sofa cushions that we had, and they were easy to get, like as an example, comparing your auto insurance or your homeowner's insurance, like those are a couple of the boxes on this. Changing your cell phone plan, looking at your credit card interest rate and doing consolidation, these types of things. There's a ton of them, but I just made a checklist for me when I was a financial planner, because sometimes if I was meeting with Bill, I would remember them. And then I meet with Jackie next and I would forget half of them, and I'm thinking about other ones. And so I need to be consistent. And then when we started the podcast, I said, you know what? I need to turn this into something that our community can use. And I'd love for you guys to have it if you want the benefits guide. So anyway,
absolutely.
We'll throw that in right at the link.
Okay. So you'll give us a link for the show notes?
Yes. stackingbenjamins.com/benefits, Bill.
Okay. Well, we'll put it in. This has been fantastic. I love, this is probably our first Ask Me Anything. And this is our first attempt at doing trivia. I'm going to ask Joe if he'll come back and do this again with us.
Well, you can see how bad I am at trivia, which is embarrassing because we do trivia on our show every episode. So you can see who doesn't answer the trivia.
Yeah, but are you going to come back and do it with
us
again?
Are you kidding me? With you guys? Anytime.
All right.
All right. So, Jackie, any final thoughts?
Yeah, only that I love the benefits guide. I feel like the most questions I get thrown my way are about benefits, and most companies, after working for the same company for 21 years, don't do a very good job of explaining them. So I'm glad that you guys are doing that. I'm all about education. That's my thing. So we'll drop the link in the show notes and we'll make sure everybody knows how to do that. But I think it's going to be extremely helpful. But Joe, this has been awesome. I finally got to meet you, not quite face to face, but I got to see your face this whole time. Yeah,
so cool.
And I got to sneak in one last trivia question. So in a percentage, what percentage of people on this podcast don't have hair?
You're outnumbered. You are outnumbered.
Well, that's straightforward, Jackie. I did my hair before the show, but I guess it doesn't. You can't tell. I've enjoyed laughing and just shooting the shit, hanging out with Joe Saul-Sehy today. He's a friend. He's your friend, my friend. And you heard it here first. Stacking Benjamins is becoming a financial education company. Look to him for your needs beyond humor, beyond podcasting, beyond so many things. I'm glad to hear they're growing, and we're happy to be a part of it. Joe has now made it. He's on Catching Up to 5. Thanks for being with us here today. Oh, show us your mug again before you go.
Yeah.
For those in the podcast, it says, woke up sexy as hell again. And we'll end there. Thank you again for being on Catching Up to 5.
Thank you, because bald guys are sexy, Jackie.
Oh,
yeah,
absolutely. A lot of testosterone. Bye, guys. See you soon.
So, Bill, as you know, we cannot do this show without our amazing staff and the people that help us put this on. So our social media is Diana Falk, our editor, Fritz Bassard, and show notes are done by Sarah von Sternberg. We love them and they keep us going.
Yeah, I mean, this show wouldn't have the quality it has without our folks, our peeps. And we'd also like to give you a few calls to action for the show. We love our community and we hope you love us back. If you want to support the show and what we're doing, you can do that at Buy Me a Coffee, which is a platform that allows you to virtually say thank you if you get value from our content. The link is in the show notes, or you can head over to our website at catchinguptofy.com and click on the Support the Podcast tab at the top right. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Catching Up to 5. We would appreciate it if you could leave us a 5-star review so that our message can reach others.
While we are financial educators, and I'm a financial professional that loves to teach, our content is for general education and information purposes only. We are not providing financial, legal, or tax advice. Always do your own research or consult a professional before making important decisions.
We'll see you next time on Catching Up to 5.